Alrighty, welcome back fellas. Today we got a bit of a journey because today I want to go ahead and try to re-rank the top 10 LRs as we approach the end of the 10th anniversary. Now I did a top 10 ranking about a week or so ago, but since that week a lot of things have changed. We got a bunch of new content like new red zone and blue zone stages, and we also got the EZAs for the 7th year part 1 LR. So in this past week a lot of things have changed, so I think it is appropriate to go ahead and try to re-rank these top 10 LRs. It's going to be a difficult kind of challenge probably, but it's also going to be very fun. Hopefully you guys will enjoy the video. If you do, you already know what to do. Of course, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, comment down below your thoughts. Let me know, who do you guys think are the top 10 LRs in your opinion? Let's go ahead and get started. So of course, right off rip, you see we have a 1A through 1C or even a 1D section here, so this may be a bit of a spoiler in terms of how I have the top LR set up here, but also as we go down, we have a section for extra LRs I want to mention who could be in the contention, like they could be discussed for top 10, but they're not top 10 in my opinion, and also we have a section for LRs who I think are really good, especially for long fights, and LRs who I think are really good for specifically short fights, so we'll talk about them as well, but let's go ahead, we'll start with these three sections and then go into our top 10. So for the extra section, let's just fill this out right here. So let me see right here. So for the extra section, we'll go ahead and let's see. So Janemba's going to be there. Tech Gogeta right here. Of course, the Tech Carnival Gotenks for me. Let me see. I know I have some others right here. The Physical Super Saiyan Trio. And then also, who is the one character I'm missing if I can find him? I know who it is. Carnival Gohan. There we go. So these five, I think these five are in the conversation for top 10, but they're just not there quite yet. So they're just extra LRs I want to mention. Now for long fights, I have 3 characters for this section and 3 characters for this section for the short fights. So for long fights, one of the go-tos, of course, Namek Goku, a king for long fights. Also 2 surprising choices, maybe the 10th anniversary Go Frieza and the 10th anniversary Super Saiyan Blue Evolved Vegeta. Now for the short fights, I'm gonna go ahead and put the AGL Full Power Frieza, MUI Goku, and the INT Super Saiyan Blue Evolved Vegeta. So this is how I have this kind of section right here. Of course, as you can see, this is going to be our top 10 LRs right here, so a bit of a spoiler, I guess, if you will. But let's go ahead and just kind of talk about these characters. I'll go a bit quick on these specific kind of characters right now and give a bit more detail for these top 10. But let's just start right here. So starting off with the first one I want to talk about is the Super Saiyan Trio. So the trio, the good thing about them is they can debuff with their 12 key, they can provide support with the 18 key, they provide a lot of support and orb changing in their kit, especially this defensive 77% boost right there. So all of this is very good. They have a standby for 3 turns during which they are a bit tankier overall because they have built-in guard, orb changing, they can boost their damage reduction and give allies defensive support as well. They can do damage with the standby, so all those things are well and good. However, when it comes to why I don't have this unit in the top 10, the fact of the matter is that overall, this unit cannot tank a lot of things thrown their way because they just don't have the defensive tools necessary. They don't have the tools necessary defensively to take on a lot of the difficult content that we see, right? So that's a big issue right there. Also, because of the way this unit is designed, technically they're not on either of the 10th anniversary fusion leads, so that is a big L for this character. So, for me, I love this character so much, but they are not going to be in the top 10 for me. Next up, Janemba. So Janemba, the thing about this character is that he is able to debuff with his super attack effects, right? His built-in guard, built-in damage reduction. He can work in slot 1, slot 2, or slot 3, but ideally wants to be in slot 2. You can build him up pretty easily, boosting his attack and defense, boosting his ki, boosting his crit chance. He has a great chance to nullify ki blast supers and a high chance to dodge supers in general, so he is a pretty consistent character. Once you build him up, he is the same character for the rest of the fight. However, he is at a point, in my opinion, where his consistency is good, but I am not a big fan of where his consistency is at compared to other characters, because his damage output is not that good in my opinion compared to a lot of the other characters, and also his defensive output is not that crazy either. So those things do kind of suffer for Janemba in my opinion. He does have a rage mode that can be activated starting from turn 6, so that is pretty good. In the rage mode, right, he will change all the orbs on the field to physical orbs, become a bit of a nuker, if you will, so that'll be pretty fun. And once he leaves the rage mode, he is still the same consistent character, but again, I am not a big fan of his damage output, even though he is consistent with it. I'm not a big fan of his defensive output overall, even though he is consistent with that as well. But yeah, Janemba, still a fun character, still really good, but just outside the top 10 for me. Also, this character doesn't have, categorical diversity, right? He's only on a few categories, and I mean, Uncontrollable Power is good, Accelerated Battle is good, Movie Bosses is good, but still, he's not on that many categories, so that is a bit of an issue for Janemba as well. Carnival Gohan. So Carnival Gohan, when I want to talk about him, the thing about Gohan is he has a couple of good things to offer, right? He can provide support with the 18 key, he can infinitely boost his ki right here per attack performed, he can do a lot of damage within a turn per super he's doing, so every additional super means he can do a lot of damage. He has built-in guard and high chance to dodge if enemies attacks if HP is 77% or less, provided that you have a Kamehameha or Earthbred Fighters ally on the same turn, so he has some nice things to offer in his base form. His standby is the better part of this character in my opinion, still to this day, where basically stands by for 5 turns. In the standby, he becomes a defensive beast, right? You know, built-in guard, 77% damage reduction when all allies in the same turn are superclass characters. He's boosting his defense per keys for obtain, so all these things are really good. And also, because his standby is for 5 turns, he can go ahead and boost his charge count and do the family Kamehameha and do a buttload of damage, right? He can do insane amounts of damage. However, when it comes to Gohan, the issues for me at this point in time, one is that his standby is no longer capable of one-shotting bosses, because bosses are just too tough, they're too tanky, so that kind of detracts Gohan's value from what it was going into the anniversary, right? The other thing is that, you know, for Gohan, in his base form, ideally, you want to put him in slot 2 or slot 3. That is where he can do his best work. However, there are so many better characters who can fit those roles, including the 10th year fusions, to the point where it's kind of like you wonder, what is the point of having Gohan on my team when I have these other better choices to throw in his place? Now, he can be a very good go-to, especially for some of the more niche categories that he's in, like, for example, you know, Saviors, Defender of Justice, Demonic Power. So those things, you know, in those situations, Gohan will be pretty good. But when it comes to, like, building the peak teams that you could with this character, he is not necessarily a character that you want to just like, he's not on your radar in terms of, like, oh, hey, I gotta make sure to take Carnival Gohan. Like, that's not what the case is nowadays. It is tough to say, but it is the truth. And so for that reason, you know, Gohan, he's outside the top 10 for me. Next up, so Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. This is an interesting one because I actually had Gotenks in my top 10 in my last ranking, and I think it was like number 7 or number 8. But, you know, since then, I've had a lot of opportunity to try out Gotenks and to figure him out and see what he's capable of. And for Gotenks, you know, he's got some nice things to offer. Being able to debuff with the 18 key is nice. He's an orb changer, so that is pretty good, right? He can link really well with the 10th anniversary fusion, so that is something that cannot be understated, so we love to see that, right? Also, you know, I mean, he's got 22% damage reduction for the first 5 turns, extra 33% on top of that when there was another final trump card ally on the team, which this is an easy condition to meet right now. Also, I mean, he also has this big thing right down here. So when receiving a Ki Blast super, he increases damage reduction by 44% temporarily and counters with ferocious power. And he also, when receiving a super, has a high chance to boost his defense by 777%. So this is a very important thing about Gotenks' kit. He also has the active, so that can boost his defense for the turn. He's on a bunch of different categories, so categorical diversity is freaking-tastic, but this is the important thing about Gotenks. Now, when this works out, when this high chance procs for you, Gotenks is one of those guys, right? This is when people say Gotenks is a fantastic character, is when you see this take place. However, when this does not work, because this is literally a coin flip, right? This is a 50-50% chance of happening, right? When it does not happen, Gotenks is getting hurt. And when you ask people like, oh, hey, how should I use Gotenks? You know, what's the best spot for him? People say, like, people will recommend to you that you use Gotenks in slot 1 or in slot 3. And slot 1, really, you're basically like gambling, if you will, on the fact that you will get this high chance to proc. So that is what it is. Gotenks, to be fair, as a fight progresses, he does lose this 22% damage reduction, so this will become a bit of an issue as the fight progresses down the line. But still, you know, the biggest thing about Gotenks is this high chance right here. So that cannot be understated in terms of like the gimmicky kind of gambling kind of focus of Gotenks. So that is like a good or bad kind of thing depending on how you look at it, is that he has the ability to do it, but also is not guaranteed. So there's that. And also, I will say, you know, even though this is a bit of a minor personal kind of gripe with Gotenks, right? The fact of the matter is that when we're recommending Gotenks be a slot 3 character, he has no part in his kit where it says, hey, Gotenks gains something by being in slot 3 specifically, right? If you think about like the TOR Glorio, right? Glorio gives support in slot 3 specifically, right? Which is why everyone says put Glorio in slot 3. But Gotenks doesn't have that into his kit. So the fact that we as a community can say that one of the best spots for Gotenks is slot 3, I think that's a testament to the fact that Gotenks is no longer the best tank or one of the better tanks in the game, and it can be scary when you have to rely on Gotenks. So that is why it's probably better to put him in slot 3, where he's basically the most safe he can be. So I think those things are important to consider, and for me, that's why Gotenks is outside the top 10. Next up, the final one for our little extras kind of section right here, so Super Gogeta. So the base form, that's kind of like whatever to me, really. I mean, being able to stack attack is all well and good. You know, having the orb changing is nice, the damage reduction. But the most important thing about this unit is the fusion, right? You can do the fusion starting from turn 4 when HP is 70% or more. And when you fuse, Gogeta becomes a very valuable asset, right? With the 18 key, he can greatly lower attack and defense on the opponent, HP recovery, guarantee crits, damage reduction, having the ability to orb change once again. With a rainbow key sphere, just one, he's able to have guard against all attacks, right? So those are all good things. Has a 5-turn scouter right there from the fusion, so that's all well and good, right? As well as additional damage reduction in slot 1, basically. He's able to nullify melee supers after hitting the enemy with his 18 key, and also he's able to just have a high chance to dodge enemy supers in general. So Gogeta is a very good part of this character. The base form is okay, but it's not that much of a go-to nowadays. Like back in the day, and I say back in the day, but basically like before the anniversary, the good thing about this unit was you could stack the attack in the base form and then fuse in Gogeta and see Gogeta do a bunch of damage and basically take over the game. Now, Gogeta, interestingly enough, has kind of been regressed or altered, if you will, into more of a utility role, where he's doing the orb changing more, the crit chance, the guard, the damage reduction. Those are the more valuable things about Gogeta, as opposed to just boosting his attack and doing a lot of damage. And also for Gogeta right here, he is able to link pretty damn well with the 10th anniversary fusions, so that cannot be understated as well, which again kind of feeds into this whole idea of Gogeta nowadays being more of a utility character, which is why you probably want to put him in slot 2 or slot 3, but you know, he does have some good things to offer. So you know, Gogeta, I love Gogeta so much. I think he's an awesome looking character and an awesome performing character, but I think he is outside the top 10 for me, especially when we consider who we still have to talk about, because these 10 right down here, they are some beasts. Alright, let's talk about these long fight LRs. So obviously, Namagoku, I don't have to say much about this guy. For any sort of long fight, like some of the red zone or blue zone stages, this guy is almost like a go-to, right? Because with those longer fights, he has more and more opportunities to do what he does best, which is to stack defense and to make himself much tankier. Now, he has 20% up to 30%, up to 50% damage reduction in slot 1, right? So 50% damage reduction in slot 1, plus all the defensive stacking. That can do a lot of work. Now, he does have built-in guard for the first 6 turns. That is only temporary, so that will be a bit of a loss, which does suck. But in place of that, all the defensive stacking he can do, that is going to more than make up for it. So, you know, for a long fight, I will say you should really consider taking Namagoku. I know Namagoku got a lot of flack about like a week or two ago when his EZA was pretty much out, but since then things have changed, and Goku, he may not be the best overall unit, but when it comes to a long fight, Goku is one of the GOATs, and I love it because I am a Namagoku fan since day one. So, you know, I love to see it. But yeah, Goku definitely a great character for long fights. Alongside him, you know, we talk about like the 10th anniversary Vegeta, right? So Vegeta may seem like an odd pick, but there are certain things about him that benefit him more in terms of longer fights. So the biggest thing is his 18 key unit super, right? Where he is able to stack attacks. So the attack stacking, obviously, as fights take longer and longer, that means Vegeta can do more stacking, which means his damage output could look a lot better in longer fights, right? So that's important. I mean, obviously he does have the intro buff, so this is temporary, so that will be unfortunate, but also, I mean, the longer a fight it progresses, right, that means Vegeta has more opportunities to get this part of his kit unlocked, which is a very important thing about him, is that, you know, with 6 or more supers, he can get the 30% damage reduction and also guaranteed crits. So those things are important, right? He can work pretty well then in slot 2 or slot 3, so in that sort of regard, I will say the longer fights are pretty good for Vegeta. Now, do I think he's necessarily the best of it in terms of longer fights? No. But, you know, when we talk about a character who I think is a lot better when you look at him in terms of longer form content, Vegeta is one of those people for sure. So that's something to be said right there. And then the last one, you know, is Go Frieza. Now, I think a lot of people are starting to follow the train, if you will, or like be of the same mindset when it comes to Go Frieza. But Frieza, you know, he's not the best part about this unit, so maybe off rip you want to like float him off, get to turn 4, and then exchange into Goku. But with Goku can stack his attack with the 12 keys, so that is very helpful. He has built-in guard against all attacks, right? You know, damage reduction with a rainbow key sphere, able to be a nuker, so those things are really good. But again, with a longer fight, Goku and Frieza, you know, Go Frieza, they can stack attack right here. So, you know, as the fight progresses, they get stronger and stronger. Then by the end of the fight with the big boss, you go back into Frieza, do the active skill, and try to take out the boss as best as you can with all the damage. So, you know, that is the awesome thing about this character, is that, you know, in long fights, the attack stacking can do a lot of value with Goku, especially a character who can already pretty much tank in a lot of situations, right? But being able to stack attack and make them a lot of a much better damage output kind of character, that is something that cannot be underappreciated in my opinion. So for long fights, I enjoy using Go Frieza for sure. Definitely a character who deserves respect in those forms of content. But, you know, at the same time, I will say these 3 LRs, don't get it twisted. I would not take any of them for something like a short form content like Formidable Foes or something like that, because in that sort of content, these guys are probably going to get cooked. I mean, you know, Vegeta, he won't have the best opportunity to get all his supers and everything. For Go Frieza, they won't be able to stack attack as well as you would like them to. And for Namek Goku, right, he's not able to get as much defensive boost as he would like. So, you know, these characters are great for long fights, but not for short fights. Now, for short fights, you know, again, kind of like vice versa, these 3 are, in my opinion, really good for short fights like for Formidable Foes, but not necessarily people I would want to use for longer content like some of the TOP Red Zone or Blue Zone stages, right? So that's what I will say right there. But let's start with Frieza. So Frieza, obviously like the opposite of Namek Goku, right? So Frieza, he can do a lot of damage, right? And also with his kit, he has a lot of built-in damage reduction, right? So he has 20% right here, plus another 20%, plus another 30% damage reduction right here in slot 1. So up to 70% damage reduction in slot 1. For the first turn, he has built-in guard against all attacks. For the first 6 turns, he's boosting attack and defense. So that is all really, really good stuff right there. And then, you know, when we talk about Frieza, the thing about this character, which is the most important thing in my opinion, is that similar to his conceptual design, right, as a character and how the story works, Frieza is really good for short fights because he's getting this attack and defensive boost. Once you get past the 6 turns, right, starting from the 7th turn for the character's entry, right, he doesn't get the defensive boost and he's getting a lesser kind of attack boost right there. So Frieza gets weaker, if you will, as the fight takes longer and longer. So that is a big issue for Frieza in my opinion, and so that is pretty much the biggest reason why I would say, like, I love Frieza and I love to use Frieza specifically in Formidable Foes and the short form content. But longer fights, you know, Frieza, he is not that guy. He is not that guy, pal, and I'm sorry to say it, but Frieza, yeah, Frieza definitely outside the top 10 for me now with all the new characters. So it is what it is. The 6th anniversary LR. So I'll talk about them side by side, if you will. But, you know, when it comes to both of them, they are both, in my opinion, pretty good for short fights. Because for the first turn, both get a pretty good thing going for them, right? For Vegeta, he has built-in guard against all attacks, right? You know, you could put him in slot 2 or slot 3. He has all the damage reduction and everything, so that can help him out as well. For MUI, that first turn, he has guaranteed dodge against all attacks. So that makes him one of the best slot 1 characters in a short fight like Formidable Foes, right? So Goku's great there. Both have a really good revival, right? You know, for Goku, can be done if HP 77% or less when he shows up in the turn. For Vegeta, it can be done once he receives 5 or more attacks in battle. So both are pretty easy conditions. And also, I mean, when they get the revivals to go off, then you get another benefit, right? Because they're boosting their ki and their stats and everything. But also, for Vegeta, with his revival, he's getting another turn of guaranteed guard. And for Goku, he's getting another turn of built-in guaranteed dodge against all attacks. So those things are so good about these characters. And obviously for short form content, what you need is a character who can just take care of things early on so that your better characters who get stronger as the fight progresses, like for example the 10th anniversary fusions, will have the safety, will have the opportunity to get stronger and then fuse and then finish the job from there, right? So that's what makes these characters special for me. And for me personally, I would say that all 3 of these characters, you know, Frieza, MUI, and Super Saiyan Blue Evolved Vegeta, I like all 3 in short form fights. I wouldn't say though that I want them in longer form content. I think Vegeta is probably the best of the 3 when it comes to that specifically. But, you know, at the same time, you know, I wouldn't want any of them for longer fights. You know, for short fights though, I will take these guys all day, any day. Alright, sorry about that, fellas. We had a bit of a technical difficulty on the recording, but to continue where we left off, now we can go into our top 10. And with these top 10 characters, I'm going to go ahead and give a bit more of a detailed kind of overview on them because I think they just deserve that much respect. But starting off with our number 10 spot right here, number 10 for me is going to be going to the Int Dokkan Fest Broly. Now, I've talked about Broly many times in the past. Broly is very special to me because he is one of, if not the only Brolys in the game where he is focused on being a more supportive character than being a individually focused powerhouse, where Broly, for one, with the leader skill, right? We don't talk about the leader skills too much, but he's leading Uncontrollable Power, Revenge, and Planetary Destruction. Now, Revenge and Planetary Destruction, they have some okay alternate leader skill opportunities and characters, right? But Broly is the better option for them, I would say. And also, for Uncontrollable Power, Broly is the only premier release character who can lead this category. The only other leader who can lead this category is the free-to-play Prime Battle LR Bio Broly. So Broly is special in that regard. He's able to stun with the enemies with the super attack effects, you know, boosting his attack and defense, but the passive skill is the best thing about him. So for the first 4 turns with his intro, right, he's able to give extreme class allies a boost to their defensive stats right there, so that's good. 60% built-in damage reduction, nice stats. Additional ki per type keys for obtained. Recovering HP per type keys for obtained, so that's really good as well. When his domain is active, you know, the domain is only up for 3 turns. He has guard against all attacks, orb changing, and if he doesn't attack while his domain is active, he's going to have attacks effective against all types for the rest of the fight. So All this is really good, and we're still not done because he has a revive. So starting from the 5th turn from the character's entry, so basically turn 5 to turn 7, he can give himself and all the other allies in his team on the same turn a revival just available to them regardless. So that's going to be very good. Of course, he gets stronger when a revival skill is activated, and if it's his revival, he's also able to do more orb changing outside of his domain, and he's able to give additional support with attack and defense 60% for uncontrollable power category allies. So, you know, Broly, the domain is pretty good, by the way, but Broly, you know, the best thing about him is his support. Now, why do I not have him higher? You know, I actually had him on my top 10 last time. I think he was actually at number 8 now, if I remember correctly, but the reason why he's dropped a few spots for me is simply because there are some new LRs who have come into play who have just taken his spots better. But, you know, when we talk about Broly, right, the other thing is that Broly, he is not the perfect unit, right? He can still take a lot of damage, he can still get hurt, and the thing about his teams in general is his teams haven't received a lot of love in terms of the new characters who can fit the meta and everything. One of the best characters being added to his team is the AGL Full Power Frieza, right? Because AGL Full Power Frieza, he is a part of Planetary Destruction. So he is a nice addition for that team, but still, you know, Broly himself, like when we talk about his individual abilities, he can do some nice damage, not the best damage. His defensive abilities are not the best as well, but he can still do some stuff. But, you know, the biggest thing is the support, and his support is good, but, you know, at the same time, you need your other characters to take care of Broly because they're the ones who are going to have to take the brunt of the work in terms of doing the damage and tanking. So Broly, I would say, as a support character, one of the best to ever do it right now, but as far as the rest of it is concerned, you know, just not good enough in my opinion. So for me, I think being a number 10 is perfectly fine. I think really when it comes to the top 10, there is a lot of interchangeability that can exist, but number 10, I feel pretty confident with Broly at that spot. Now number 9, maybe a familiar face right here, the Tech Carnival Broly. So Tech Broly already may be a bit of an interesting spot right there, but for me, I think Tech Broly should be number 9, and again, there's interchangeability here, but I think he's going to be number 9 for me, just because there are a lot of situations where Broly can get tagged nowadays, right? So when we talk about Broly, right, in his base form, that first turn, Broly is a dog, because in his base form, right, for that first turn in slot 1, for example, he has 90% damage reduction, and in slot 2 or slot 3 for that first turn, he has 70% damage reduction, plus guard all attacks, right, and defensive boost, right? So, you know, for that first turn in base form, Broly is not going to get you killed in any way, shape, or form. He is going to just tank everything like it's no one's business. Now, once that first turn passes, then you're forced to transform into Broly, because if you don't, this base form is going to get cooked. Now, I will say, you know, for me personally, when I use him, there are ways to cheese Broly where basically you can try to prolong the fight and prolong the transformation, if you will, by putting Broly in slot 3, floating him off, and then just timing the fights basically so the phases will end before Broly has to tank a hit, right? So you can do it like that, but still you have to basically transform Broly the next time you have to use him, right? So that's basically how it works. So once you transform into Broly, though, Broly is an interesting character because, you know, he's able to boost attack and defense with a 12 key. You know, he's boosting attack only with his 18 key, right? This is a stacking effect, and he can do an AoE super, so that can be helpful. He's got nice damage reduction, so 50% to start, plus an extra 26% for the first 3 turns, so that's 76% damage reduction for the first 3 turns. He's got built-in guard in slot 1, defensive boost before he attacks in slot 1, so that kind of further incentivizes him to be there. He can do additional supers in slot 2 or slot 3. He's able to boost his ki and his crit chance and everything. He's able to do interruption to enemy. He's able to interrupt an enemy's attack with 24 keys, so those things are all really good. But the thing about Broly is that, you know, I mean, he gets better as a fight progresses in some aspects, but also he gets worse in other aspects as well, right? I mean, with the active skill, he's able to boost his attack and defense in battle, so that is actually a really good thing right there, the boosting of the key. All those things are good. He's on some really good categories like full power, inhuman deeds, you know, movie bosses, uncontrollable power, things like that, pure Saiyans. But, I mean, when it comes to Broly, you know, the thing about Broly is that he is really good defensively early on, and then he gets weaker defensively, but gets stronger offensively as the fight takes longer and longer because of his 18 key super. So it's kind of like a trade-off there. Yes, his attack potential, it can be good, but at the same time, you know, if you ask me, I would much rather prefer that Broly is a more defensive unit. And with some of the newer red zone stages, the blue zone stages, which take a long time to get done, Broly loses his defensive value. So those things do kind of hold Broly back for me, and beyond that, I mean, if we're being honest, some of these other characters, you know, as time has progressed, they just seem to age better and better. They're just able to work in some of the better teams a lot more, so for me, all those reasons combined, that's why I have the Tech Broly at number 9, but understand, again, he is a really good character. If we're talking about like short form content, Broly is going to jump up at least like 2, 3, maybe 4 spots in my opinion, because that base form, that alone is really insane for like the first turn or whatever he shows up. So, you know, there are things to consider. There's like certain types of content where Broly's going to be able to eat a lot more. But, you know, overall, I will say Broly for me, I think number 9 is an okay spot for him. Again, you know, Broly being a number 90 and Broly being a number 10, they're not bad units. They're actually really crazy good units even to this day. But it just speaks to the fact that the other characters on this list, they are just that elite in my opinion compared to these guys as well. So there's that. Next up for our number 8 spot. So this is going to be one of the hot takes on this video. So be warned, but number 8 for me is going to be going to Beast Gohan. Now, I will say, before everyone gets on me in the comments, a friend of mine even said to me, maybe I should consider putting Beast a bit higher on this list, and I think you could argue that he's a bit higher on this list depending on certain types of fights, but overall, I've been trying out Beast so much compared to some of these other characters, and I just think the number 8 is a good spot for him. Again, he's pretty good, but I think compared to these other characters, he's not the same guy as he once was, and to be fair, that should be expected. I mean, this guy is a year old. If this guy was a top 5 character in the game right now by the end of the 10th anniversary, we would have problems. We would have serious problems because that either means that the new characters are not that good, or that means that the content wasn't designed in a way to challenge Beast in the way that it should have. So in that sort of respect, I will say that the 10th anniversary did a good job of making better characters and making content that kind of shows the potential weaknesses of Beast, you know, just as he's aged and gotten older, right? So those things should be said. But when we talk about Beast, you know, I've said it before, I'll say it again, he is a jack of all trades type of character and a character who is meant for shorter fights. Now, with the leader skill, you probably don't want to run a double Beast Gohan lead nowadays. It's not the best team in the world anymore. You can do it, but yeah, again, not the really go-to team. If anything, you'd be much better off running Beast under a double Tech Vegito lead, because Tech Vegito gives the full lead and everything, is a great leader skill, so you'd rather run Beast in that team. But the leader skill is alright. The super attack effects, the 12 keys, whatever. The 18 key is nice though because he can stack attack and he can raise defense for 4 turns. So that can be pretty helpful right there. He has a unit super which can give a boost to crit chance and disable enemy action. However, you don't really see that nowadays because there's not really a good Piccolo in the game right now. We will probably see that like sometime later in this year with the orange Piccolo easy and everything, but for the time being, Beast is just relying on the 18 key basic super right here. So there's that. But the passive skill, this is what people love about Beast, or at least one of the things that people love about Beast. But, you know, for the passive skill, right out the gate, he has an intro condition, right? For the first 5 turns, damage reduction increases by 40% along with a boost to his crit chance and his key. So that's pretty good. He has built-in guard against all attacks, some nice attacking defensive boost right there. When attacking, he's boosting his crit chance. When receiving an attack, he's boosting his defense and his damage reduction by 20% again when key is 24. He can give support to allies with additional key, right? Additional supers. For every attack he's receiving, he's boosting his crit chance and his attack within a turn, and also after doing 5 or more attacks or receiving 8 or more attacks in battle, he's further boosting his crit chance and damage reduction by 20% and giving all allies additional key boost for the rest of the fight. So Beast has some nice things in his passive, and also his active is actually really good as well, because his active, right, it is a taunt, right, you know, boosting his defense, directing all the attacks towards him, and all attacks become crits for 1 turn. So this is a very easy taunt to activate, and taunts in this game in general, they are still so good. Now, taunts, they're only for 1 turn, so if you want to be a bit of a critical kind of person on the taunts, like I do that sometimes, where I will say the taunt is good, but it's only for 1 turn, and fights, you know, they don't end in 1 turn often, right? They take more than that, but still, having a taunt for 1 turn where things go south, that is a really awesome thing right there. Now, beyond that, you know, when we talk about Beast, you know, the reason why I have him at number 8, you know, people are going to say I'm just tripping when I have Beast at number 8, but the thing about Beast is that he is designed for short fights, right? You know, I mean, this 40% damage reduction is important because for the first part, like the early parts of fights, right, like formidable foes where they're very short, this will be activated. Beast will be at some of his best kind of forms in that regard. However, as a fight takes longer, like some of the new red zone or blue zone stages, Beast loses this intro ability, and it's not his fault, that's just how his intro works. So if a fight takes too long, Beast is losing on 40% damage reduction. So let's just say you're going to a red zone stage, you lose this intro. What does Beast still have? Well, he's able to still have the guard, right? So that's still there. He still has the boosted 20% damage reduction here and a 20% damage reduction right here. So that can be up to 40% damage reduction with guard. But as we know, characters who also have guard and 50% damage reduction even, they are not necessarily able to tank some of the harder fights and the harder hits that you see in the game with supers and even some normals. So that is going to be something that has to be said for Beast. Now with the taunt, Beast will be fine. You know, anytime that Beast has his taunt active, right, like when his taunt is up and running, Beast will be fine, right, because the defensive boost will help him, it's multiplicative, so he'll be fine. However, outside of the taunt turn, Beast can get hurt, especially when his intro buff is gone. Now, even with his intro buff in play, right, I've had it happen a lot of times lately where it's actually kind of pissing me off now. I've seen Beast take damage, and the reason why he takes damage is because it's a combination of maybe critical hits being built into certain characters, or it's one of those things where a character like an opponent boss does a lot of damage, and for Beast, the first hit that he takes in a turn is not going to have this extra 20% damage reduction. So I've said it before, if the first hit that Beast takes in a turn is a super, bosses hit really hard with their super nowadays. If the first hit is that super, Beast won't have this 20% damage reduction, right? He'll basically be relying early on this 40% damage reduction by itself with the guard, and that will cause him to take a lot of damage. Now, does that mean it will necessarily end you runs? No, but at the same time, he is still taking a lot of damage, making him kind of freak out a bit, and it's also one of those things where if you look at Beast and you hear what everyone says, like, oh, Beast is such a great character, such a great tank, those things were true for a long time, but nowadays, Beast does show a bit of weakness because just bosses hit so hard. It's not Beast's fault, but bosses hit so hard. He is a character who's meant for shorter fights, and even then, you need certain things to work out in your favor to a degree to make sure Beast will be at his safest position, so all those things need to be considered. Now, I will say, I've heard some people argue that, the thing about Beast is he's taking damage, but he's not ending you runs. So if he takes damage, what that means is then you can go ahead and do certain things like use other people's mechanics, right? You can go ahead and use Beast to take damage, and then get someone like GT Goku right down here to go into his grade 8 form, or to get MUI to get his revival to go off, or certain things like that. Or you can use him to take damage, and then go Frieza, to be able to work in his Frieza mode, or something like that. But at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, if we have to argue that Beast's value is him taking damage so that others can do their thing, that is a kind of, that's more so of an issue on Beast kind of things, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not saying that to hate on Beast, but, if you're saying to me that MUI and Beast work so well together because Beast takes damage and MUI can get the revival, MUI deserves the credit for me in that regard, because that means he has a revival that's so easy to access and so reliable for when a character like Beast takes damage. So there's things like that. But yeah, for me, Beast, I think number 8 is a good spot for him. He doesn't do the best damage in the world. People will say that was not his role to begin with, and that is true, but now he's also not the best tank in the world either. So not doing the best damage, not being the best tank, being limited more so towards shorter fights compared to longer fights, those things all kind of combine to me to kind of hold Beast a bit back. Now, again, the taunt is really good. He's on a lot of good categories. He links really well with the Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, who we'll just see in just a moment, but Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, that linking partnership is really, really powerful. And also, this character can still work in a lot of the better teams, but, nowadays you're kind of forced to put him in a slot 2, maybe slot 3 nowadays. You're kind of in a position where you have to be a bit wary of Beast at times, so those things have to be considered. And for me, I think, Beast being a number 8 is perfectly fine. It's not a knock on him. It's just more so just recognizing what the 10th anniversary has done in terms of new content and new characters. So it is what it is. Alright, now to our number 7 spot. So our number 7 spot is going to be going to another Gohan, and that's going to be Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. Now, I will say, I think between these two, this is where people will say Beast should not be lower than Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. However, for me, when it comes to what Super Saiyan 2 Gohan has to offer, I just like what he is doing a lot more. His role is really meant to be a slot 2 or slot 3 character, but he can do a really good job in those roles, and also sometimes in slot 1, even though he's not meant to be a slot 1 character, it sometimes surprises me how well he handles that role compared to some of the other characters in the game right now. So, honestly, credit where credit is due. Gohan is a fantastic character, even at 55%, if you guys look at what Gohan can do, he is actually a really crazy, really consistent character, and that cannot be understated. But when we talk about Gohan, by the way, the art is going so crazy right now. With Gohan, the super attack effects are pretty good, but being able to debuff the defense is pretty good as well. His passive skill, he has an intro right here that can be done when there's another full power Android Cell Saga ally on the team. So the Cell Saga part, you may not see that, but the full power condition, that is pretty easy to me because there's a lot of good full power characters right now, so that's pretty easy right there. Once you get the intro right, he's able to launch additional attack. There's a medium chance to become a super per existing enemy, so that can be up to 5 times within a turn because 5 enemies in a turn, right? And also 2 additional guaranteed supers on top of that for 4 turns. So this is a very nice kind of intro right here. This is not one of those things that, if you don't have it, Gohan is suddenly trash, but it's nice to have it, and when you do have it, it makes Gohan better, right? So that is a really awesome thing right there. With the basic effects, his built-in guard, 20% damage reduction, right? He's got decent stats. When attacking, he's boosting his attack right there. For every attack he's performing, he's boosting his ki and his attack and defense. When receiving an attack, he's boosting his defense again, and from the 5th turn for the character's entry, so basically turn 5 to turn 7, right? He's boosting attack and defense again with 18 or more ki, and a guaranteed crit when doing the active or with 24 ki, and his active, right? This is crazy. So the condition may seem a bit daunting, but this condition is very easy, right? When there's another Kamehameha ally on the same team, starting from the 5th turn for the character's entry turn, so basically the same condition as right here, or when facing only one enemy whose HP is 89% or less, starting from the 5th turn for the character's entry turn, again, this condition right here. So pretty easy, does a lot of damage, a beautiful active, by the way, giving himself 24 ki again for that guaranteed crit and everything, and also boosting his attack in the turn. I've seen Gohan with the active done, with his links, like only 5 links or so with Beast and everything, I've seen him do 60 million to maybe even upwards of like 70 million damage with his just one 18 key super. So that is That is just crazy to me. That is crazy how much damage the Gohan is capable of. And again, you know, in slot 2 or slot 3, you know, with the guard and the damage reduction, you may think Gohan is not going to be that good. But the stats are really powerful for him. He's boosting his stats and everything with his super attack effects. You know, he can do a lot of work. And in slot 2 or slot 3, he is tanking really well and really consistently. Now, his only weakness is in slot 1. Right, his slot 1 weaknesses can be there because he's not built up necessarily. He has to take attacks beforehand. But, you know, even then, there are a lot of times where I look at him and I'm like, this guy is tanking better than even like some of the like fusions, right? Like the 10th anniversary fusions. I'm seeing them tank worse than Gohan at times. And it's kind of crazy, but that's just Gohan for you. Gohan is still finding a way to be crazy one way or another. And, you know, for Super Saiyan 2 Gohan fans like me, we love to see a Gohan. This is one of Gohan's best moments as a character, right? As a story. So yeah, this is great to see Gohan doing his thing. Obviously not the best character in the game, but still really good. He's on a bunch of categories, by the way, you know, Transformation Boost, Demonic Power for the Glorio supports, Kamehameha, Entrusted Will, you know, Cell Saga, of course, with Hybrid Saiyans. So being on those categories, that is really good. But yeah, I mean, Gohan, can't say much about him. You know, this guy is just consistent, really good at what he does, and what he does is pretty amazing. Now, if I had to be critical about Gohan, you know, again, not being a slot 1 character does suck, but also, the fact of the matter is that, you know, Gohan doesn't provide support to his allies, right? He's not giving ki to them, he's not giving some sort of stat boost or anything, so that is another kind of L when it comes to Gohan. However, realistically, he doesn't need to because there's so many other great characters who can be kind of self-sufficient on their own. And for Gohan, the fact of the matter is that he is at least able to take care of himself, and that can do a lot of value in and of itself because in slot 2 or slot 3, you look at Gohan, you're like, hey, I need someone for these positions. Gohan will be that guy for you. He will take care of the job. He will just clock in and do his thing, and you are good to go. So yeah, I realize I sound like I'm glazing Super Saiyan 2 Gohan a lot, but for me, this is one of those characters where I've seen a lot of people say that Gohan should not be this high on the list, that he should be a lot lower, that he's not that good compared to these other characters. And yet time in and time again in Formidable Foes, in Red Zone stages, and Blue Zone stages, Gohan remains consistent. He is still showing me why he is that guy, and he's still showing why he has a lot of value. So number 7, I feel good with Gohan right there. Now number 6 is going to go to the Great Ape Saiyan Saga Vegeta. So this is where specifically my friend was like telling me, hey, maybe I should swap Beast and Saiyan Saga Vegeta. Saiyan Saga Vegeta should be down here because, you know, Beast has certain things to offer. And that is true. Beast has a taunt that Vegeta does not. You know, Beast provides support, which Vegeta doesn't necessarily provide support. But for me, I like what Vegeta has to offer more because he is consistent. I mean, with Beast, right, we talked about him, right? He gets weaker if a fight takes too long. For Vegeta, he is the same character from turn 1 all the way to turn infinity, right? I mean, he's boosting his attack, boosting his defense with the 12 and 18 key right here. The 18 key is an AoE super, so that can be helpful, of course. You know, he's able to boost his key and attack when facing a Goku, so that's an intro condition that is pretty easy, but also not the end of the world if he doesn't get that. He has 20% damage reduction built in, plus guard built in as well, and in slot 1, he has 40% damage reduction as well, so that is 60% damage reduction in slot 1 with guard, never going away. And he can go in slot 2 and slot 3, get some additional supers and everything, but really you want to put him in slot 1, and that is really, really helpful for things like Formidable Foes, for things like Red Zone and Blue Zone stages. Vegeta is really good. Now, to be fair, he's not perfect, he can still take some damage here and there, but when you look at what he's doing, he's actually not taking that much damage for a character that you could argue is probably not the best character, like linking wise and everything, right? He's not linking well with a lot of these newer characters, but still, he is handling himself really well. I mean, you look at the characters he can link up with, all of the characters that he can link up with right here, none of them really are great characters to put in the game right now in terms of using them. So yeah, that says a lot about Vegeta just handling his business despite all of that. But yeah, Vegeta, I just like what Vegeta has to offer more because, in my opinion, he just offers overall better damage reduction, more consistent damage reduction than Beast. I think overall, you know, the AoE super, it's not often that you see it work, but when it does have that value, it is nice. You know, the defensive boosting is everything, it's all really good. So yeah, Vegeta, I love that, and still we're not done because he has a Great Ape form. So when things get a bit hazy, you know, HP is 40% or less, you can go into the Great Ape form, do some damage, do some crit hits. If I can go ahead and show it there you go, guarantee crits, boost in damage. So those things are good, but really the base form, being able to be so consistent in slot 1, that is so good for me. So I gotta go ahead and put Vegeta at number 6. I think, you know, Vegeta, I will say, his damage is not the best in the world. It is a bit better than Beast's, but it's not the best in the world. You know, Gohan does so much better damage. And honestly, I will say, you know, if you want to go ahead and, like, argue the positions, I think these 3 can be kind of interchangeable. For me, I think Broly is where I'll kind of stop with that. Maybe you could put Broly a bit higher too, but I think these 4 at most, you know, but definitely these 3 you can kind of interchange based on what you like more or less in a character. But I think Vegeta, I like his consistency and the fact he's just basically a slightly better Beast Gohan in terms of, like, the damage reduction and the guard and everything. So I think for those reasons, I'm going to go ahead and say Vegeta's number 6. But yeah, all of these characters are really good. So I can't sing enough about their praises. They've all been really great characters to use in a lot of content. So it is what it is. But now we go into our top 5. So this is where things get a bit spicy perhaps, because obviously we have a lot of powerful characters to talk about. But number 5, I think we all know who's number 5 is going to be. Number 5 is going to be going to the Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan 4 GT Goku. So when we talk about this Goku, the thing is, his base form is okay, being able to do attack and defensive boost with the 18 and 12 key, that's nice and all. He's got built-in dodge and built-in guard for the first 4 turns, so that's pretty helpful when he can do so. He's giving support to Power Beyond Super Saiyan allies, so that can be pretty helpful right there. But, he's got some nice things in his base form, right? Being able to boost attack and defense for every 3 keys, so those are all good things, but his base form is just the tip of the iceberg, right? Because then you go into his grade 8 mode, that is only for 1 turn, can be done with HP 70% or less, or starting from turn 5, so pretty easy conditions right there. Once you go into the grade 8 mode, again, that's for only 1 turn. In his grade 8 mode, right, he has the 18 key super, so that can do a lot of damage, right? He's got a bunch of attack boosting, additional key boosting and everything, guaranteed crits, and then once that turn is over, guaranteed he is going into Super Saiyan 4. And once he goes into Super Saiyan 4, this guy becomes a dog, right? This guy becomes that guy, because he's able to stack attack and defense with his 12 and 18 key. He's giving support to all allies for 44% to attack and defense for 2 turns with the 18 key, so that's really good right there. He's giving defensive boost right there, and damage reduction up by 10% for Power Beyond Super Saiyan or Giant Power allies, guarding all attacks, doing all sorts of stuff, HP recovery, boosting the key infinitely and its crit chance, so all those things are really good. So Goku, he is just fantastic, and the thing about Goku that makes him so special even now is the fact that, for one, he's on a bunch of categories, so the categorical diversity on this character is insane, and also, he is linking really well with one particular Super Saiyan 4 duo right here, right? The physical Super Saiyan 4s, who are so dominant right now, so Goku being able to link with them, being able to give them the Power Beyond Super Saiyan buff and everything, and the damage reduction and everything, that makes him a fantastic character. Now, he's not really a Slot 1 character, but Slot 2 and Slot 3, this character can work really well, providing that support, being able to do what he does, HP recovery, so Goku, I'm a big fan of him. I think in number 5, he's definitely a number 5 character for me in top 5 and everything, because his stock has been rising more and more and more ever since the 10th anniversary started. When the 10th anniversary started, right, he was like considered a top 3 character. Then we got new EZAs, new characters. He was kind of dropping a bit lower and lower, and Formidable Foes made characters like Beast a lot better. But then, now with the EZAs and everything for this 7th years, his stock has been rising once again back to like the top 5, and I think that's a great spot for him. GT fans are eating good when it comes to Super Saiyan 4 Goku right here, because he is doing a lot of work and a lot of value. So we love to see it. But now into our top 4, this is where things are going to become really interesting, because of course we have a number 4 section here, but also we have a section for 1A through maybe even 1D. So the question is, how am I going to have this set up? So, for me personally, if you ask me, I think all 4 of these LRs are top 4 LRs saved at the number 1 spot. So 1A through 1B, 1C, and all 1D and all that sort of stuff. I think all 4 are just so good. They're so powerful, so dynamic. They do so much, and they work so well with each other. So, if you ask me, that's how it's set up. But I think, 2 characters could make the case for number 4, but it is kind of Mickey in that sort of regard. One character would obviously be the Tech Gods. On paper, people will say that the Tech Gods don't provide as much as the other 3 characters. The other for me, and this is going to be a bit of a hot take as well, I think an arguable kind of case for number 4 could be Super Vegito. But at the end of the day, I think all 4 are tied for 1A through 1D, and I know a lot of people may clip that and take it out of context, but Vegito, I think all 4 are really good characters, but when we talk about them, right, we start with the Super Saiyan 4s, they are really insane. Just like the Super Saiyan Gods or the Tech Gods, they can stack attack and defense like no one's business in the first turn, right? They have insane damage reduction, so they are really great right there. They have guard built into their kits for the first 7 turns, so they're really good. Able to do a bunch of additional supers for more stacking, so the base forms are the same, but they are very powerful. Now, the leader skills with the EZAs, they're okay. They're not that great. I'm kind of disappointed about the leader skills with the EZAs, but it is what it is. The passive, the super attack effects, those are really good. And when we go into Gogeta, this is crazy, because this can be done from turn 4 with Gogeta. He's able to massively boost his attack and defense and everything for 1 turn right here with the 12 key, with the 18 key massively raising attack and defense for 4 turns, disabling enemy action, so those are all really powerful effects. Once again, another turn for 77% damage reduction for 1 turn, built-in guard, high chance to do a crit, launch additional guaranteed supers, has a scouter for the rest of the fight. This is a very important mechanic, because Gogeta, as we see down here, he wants to face the super. He has a great chance to nullify his super and counter it. He can guarantee nullify and counter his super when facing only one enemy whose HP is 50% or less, and also when our HP is 50% or less, he has another turn with built-in 50% damage reduction guaranteed within the turn. So this guy is insane. I mean, he can boost his attack per every key sphere he's obtaining. His orb changing for the first 4 turns. He has a bunch of stuff to offer, boosting his damage reduction with every rainbow key sphere. So This guy is really, really powerful, and in fights where you can stack the base form a lot, this guy can do a lot of damage. We're seeing the Super Saiyan 4s basically just one-shot bosses, and it's so beautiful to see, but these guys are so insane. They're on some really good categories, and also, as I mentioned earlier, they link really well with the GT Super Saiyan 4 Goku, which is important because he provides a lot of support, additional, defensive and damage reduction boosts, so those things are really good right there. So the tech gods are good. Gogeta, I don't need to say much, base forms are good and whatever, but Super Gogeta is what makes this character so crazy, because with Super Gogeta, you're able to provide support with the active skill, you have built-in guard, damage reduction, nullifying negative effects, which again, in my opinion, one of the most underrated parts of Gogeta's kit, built-in guaranteed crits, a lot of support to allies and everything, boosting his damage reduction with every rainbow key sphere he's obtaining, right, has a scouter for 4 turns when he's fused, right, he's able to do a lot of damage, and also, he is able to bring this team together because he has the best lead, right, he's able to lead all those characters and give an extra 50% the whole lead for himself and the 2 year 7 Easy A's, so that is also really special, right? So those things are really awesome right there. The base forms, being able to stack attack with Vegeta is alright. The first 3 turns are okay, guard all attacks and everything. Super Saiyan Goku is pretty good as well because he can stack defense, he can work in slot 1 with the dodge and everything, and also Veku is very powerful, and in case you can't get to the fusions, Veku is pretty strong, so the Veku fusion is really cool, it's really awesome and very helpful, so those things are really good. And then we keep on going, right, because Gogeta, he's awesome. We go now into the tech gods. The tech gods are basically like the Super Saiyan 4s to a degree, where the base form is the same, slot 1, that first turn, they can be a perfect slot 1 tank, with 77% damage reduction. They can do a bunch of additionals, stack their attack and defense, do a lot of work, and then turn 4, you can go ahead into the Super Saiyan Blues, which, by the way, their battle motion is one of the best in the game, but with the Super Saiyan Blues, right? The Super Saiyan Blues have the same kind of super attack effects as Gogeta, so it's the same thing there, just crazy damage output. Again, another turn for 77% damage reduction for that first turn, built-in guard, high chance to perform a crit, medium chance to dodge now built into their kit. They're orb changing, they can do more orb changing for the first 4 turns. They're boosting their attack and defense for every key sphere. They're boosting their dodge chance for every rainbow key sphere, so they can do a lot of work. A bunch of additionals built into their kit, so they can do a lot of damage. When attacking, by the way, if an enemy's HP is 50% or more, they will do a guaranteed crit and launch an additional super once again, and when receiving an attack, if our HP is 50% or less, they will have a guaranteed dodge against enemies' attacks. So all this stuff is really good. They have an active that is so powerful. I have seen the tech gods just 99999 infinite damage the opponent bosses. It is so crazy to see what they can do. And again, just like the Super Saiyan 4s, right? If you can stack them a lot in their base form, these guys can do so much damage with dupes and everything. These guys look so insane. They look so good. So I think both of the year 7s deserve to be in the top 1 section for me, for sure. They are kind of different from one another. I mean, I understand that people will say the Super Saiyan 4s are better because of the counters and also that scouter and everything, but both are really insane characters. And finally, Super Vegito. So when I said the tech gods maybe have a case for number 4, that was because on paper they don't provide the support and everything that the fusions do for the 10th anniversary, as well as Gogeta with the scouter and everything. For Vegito, the reason why I want to make a case for him in number 4 to a degree, just to push an agenda, even though I don't think it's entirely the case, is that, for Vegito, he doesn't provide necessarily something overall. I would say that there's very few things that Vegito provides that are not covered by some of the other characters, right? Because, for Vegito, he's able to stack attack and defense, or stack attack with the base form like Tech Goku right here, so slot 2 and slot 3 is great for him. A bunch of damage reduction to begin the fight, so that's really good. Can exchange into Vegeta, right? So Vegeta, just like the AGL Goku, can stack the defense, work in slot 1, built-in guard, a bunch of damage reduction, so those things are good. But then also the active skill, the failed Potara, right, the Crush Potara, I have never seen a reason to do this. This is a terrible active skill compared to like the Veku Fusion, because having the built-in guard is good, boosting their stats is good, but compare that to the others, this is not really worth it. You much rather just wait a turn and then go into Super Vegito. And Super Vegito is insane because HP recovery, guarding all attacks, 60% damage reduction, 18 key, additional 18 key supers, nice support, building up the crit chance and everything, boosting attack within a turn for every attack he's receiving, countering normals, 4-turn scouter for his fusion and everything. This guy is awesome. And also the taunt. The taunt is so good because he's able to do a bunch of counters in one turn. He's doing a lot of damage right now. He's just able to do so much. But why do I have him at number 4 then, potentially? Well, that's kind of one of those things where Vegito, the best things about Vegito, in my opinion, is the first few turns with Goku, because he can just tank so well in slot 2 and slot 3, and the Vegito fusion, right? The Vegeta, like the Vegeta side of this unit, I'm not a big fan of that character overall, I just don't think he's that good compared to some of the others. And also, for Vegito, the thing about him that makes him so special is he's got the taunt, he's tanking a bunch of hits, and he's countering, so he can do a lot of damage, right? The tanking, and the countering, and the damage output. Now, the taunt, that will never not be special, right? That's the best thing about Vegito, is that he has a taunt, and insane taunt, by the way, one of the best, if not the best taunts in the game, period. He can do so much damage, just destroy bosses. But also, we have 2 other characters with the Tech Gods and the Super Saiyan 4s who can also delete bosses, right? So that's kind of one of those things where Vegito, just like them, they have a similar kind of role, a similar kind of value there. And for, you know, Gogeta in my opinion nowadays is a lot better because he can provide the support, which is really good, and he is able to make this whole team better because he is the better leader when it comes to covering the year 7. So, you know, when you talk about the top 4 characters in the game, having one character who can lead a lot of them better than the other one, that I think is something that has to be said. So those kind of things made me like the other 3 a bit more than Vegito personally, but at the same time, you know, I just don't think that number 4 should be a spot here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete that right now. I just want to go ahead and talk about that though, but this is gonna be how I have the list. So let's just go ahead and recap this. So, you know, for our number, like for our bottom, I guess starting with our bottom here. So Janemba, Tech Gogeta, Tech Gotenks, Physical Super Saiyan Trio, Carnival Gohan. These are extra LRs who I think can be in the conversation, but just not top 10 for me. For LRs who I think are really good for long fights, you have Int Nam and Goku, the 10th anniversary Go Frieza, and the 10th anniversary Super Saiyan Blue Evolved Vegeta. For short fights, give me the Age Gel Full Power Frieza, MUI Goku, and the Int Super Saiyan Blue Evolved Vegeta. And then our top 10, number 10, Int Broly, number 9, Tech Carnival Broly, number 8, as much as people probably will hate me for this, Beast Gohan, number 7, Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, number 6, Great Ape Saiyan Saga Vegeta, number 5, the Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan 4 GT Goku, and tied for number 1, the 4 kings of Dokkan right now, all the fusions by the way. You have Super Gogeta right here, right, the HL Super Gogeta, the 7th anniversary Tech Gods, the 7th anniversary Super Saiyan 4s, and the 10th anniversary Super Vegito. So that's gonna be my list, how I have it set up and everything. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you guys agree with this list? What do you guys think is probably something wrong with this list? I'm sure there are a few things that people will disagree with, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully you guys will enjoy the vid again, because that's gonna be where we wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed the vid, again, be sure to drop a like, show your support, you know, subscribe to the channel, comment down below your thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.